When you picture an ancient African king, what comes to mind? A powerful figure, draped in gold, sitting on a throne? The storybook version sells us a life of endless luxury. But the reality was far more intense and way more complicated. For many of the most powerful rulers across Africa's vast history, the day wasn't about leisure, it was about duty. The crown was not a symbol of rest. It was a crushing weight of spiritual obligation and relentless administration. But here's the key. There was no single job description for a king. A ruler in the Mali Empire had a vastly different day from a king in the Great Zimbabwe or a chief in the Zulu Kingdom. So forget the fairy tales. We're about to explore the grueling, ritual-packed, and surprisingly bureaucratic responsibilities that shaped the lives of these diverse rulers. What did they actually do all day? Long before anyone else was awake, the king's day often began. This wasn't a job you could be late for. In many kingdoms, the ruler was seen as the crucial link between the physical and spiritual worlds, responsible for maintaining cosmic balance. If he faltered, the well-being of the entire kingdom could be at risk. For many rulers, the day started with sacred rituals. For a devout Muslim leader like Mansa Musa of the Mali Empire, this time was for prayer and seeking guidance from Allah. His faith was a cornerstone of his reign, influencing his decisions and his empire's culture. In a very different context, the kings of Kush saw themselves as chosen by the gods, particularly the powerful deity Amun. Their duties involved complex temple rituals, often performed by priests, that reaffirmed their divine legitimacy and connection to the gods. This spiritual role was so important that some kings lived under incredible prohibitions. It is said that in the Kingdom of Buganda, the Kabaka was considered so sacred that he was forbidden from being seen doing ordinary human things, like eating or crying. Some historical accounts claim he was not to touch the bare earth and was carried on skins. These rules reinforce the idea of sacred kingship, the ruler as something more than human, a vessel of divine power. But as the sun rose, this sacred figure often had to transform into something else entirely, a chief executive. As the day began, the king often shifted from high priest to chief administrator. The palace doors would swing open, and many kings would hold public audiences, becoming the ultimate judge for their people. This was a cornerstone of royal duty in many kingdoms. Imagine a great hall where citizens, village chiefs, and officials could bring their issues, a land dispute, a report of theft, directly to the throne. The king would listen and deliver his judgment. For the Oba of Benin, holding court with his chiefs was a central function, settling disputes and acting as the fountain of customary law. This wasn't just about power, it was about maintaining social order. But the king's work didn't stop there. He would often retreat to meet with his inner council. This was the strategic heart of the kingdom. Here, he might meet with a treasurer to review tax revenues or reports on the trade of gold and salt. He'd meet with top generals to discuss military readiness, and he'd consult with spies who delivered intelligence from rival states. This was the less glamorous reality underpinning the king's power. One moment, a divine figure. The next, deep in discussions about grain supplies or troop movements. For a ruler like the Oba of Benin, this also involved overseeing the powerful craft guilds that produced the kingdom's famous bronze and ivory works, not by micromanaging them daily, but by directing policy through their leaders. Every grand public display was backed by hours of tedious, essential administrative work. The king couldn't just rule, he had to manage. After the morning's administrative work, a king's afternoon was often dedicated to being seen. While the morning might be about listening and deciding, the afternoon was about inspecting and displaying power. This could take many forms. A king might tour the capital to inspect a new construction project. Mansa Musa famously funded the creation of magnificent mosques and libraries in cities like Timbuktu, and it's likely he would have taken a keen interest in their progress. These weren't just buildings, they were powerful statements of his piety, wealth, and vision for the empire. For a ruler like Shaka Zulu, afternoons could be all about the military. Shaka is credited with transforming the Zulu into a formidable force through intense, hands-on involvement. His innovations included the iconic short-stabbing spear, the Ikloa, and revolutionary battle formations. He drilled his regiments relentlessly, and stories tell of warriors trained to have incredible endurance. He wasn't a distant commander. His presence was a source of both inspiration and fear. This was also a time for softer displays of power. A king might ride through the royal grounds or visit a busy market. This allowed the people to see their ruler not just as a judge, but as a presence, ensuring the kingdom's prosperity. Even leisure was a performance. A royal hunt demonstrated strength, while patronage of court musicians and storytellers showed sophistication. There was no off the clock for a king. His entire life was a form of statecraft. As the sun set, the King's Day entered its final phase, blending diplomacy, final duties, and family life. Evening audiences were often reserved for more sensitive matters. He might meet with foreign dignitaries or his chief spies delivering reports under the cover of dusk. This was the time to learn of shifting alliances and simmering plots. Following this, many rulers performed evening devotions, again marking the transition from day to night with prayer or ritual, thanking their ancestors or deities for protecting the realm. On special occasions, the evening would culminate in a great feast. But even here, work was being done. A royal banquet was a theater of power. The quality of the food and the seating arrangements sent subtle messages about favor and hierarchy. It was a time to reward loyal chiefs and impress foreign visitors. Finally, late at night, the king would retire to his private quarters and the royal household. This was not merely a place of rest, it was a critical political institution. In many kingdoms, the king's wives were the daughters of powerful regional chiefs, and these marriages were essential for sealing alliances that held the realm together. His interactions here were about diplomacy and, crucially, ensuring the continuation of his dynasty. Before sleep, he might have a scholar read to him, offering a moment of quiet contemplation before the cycle began all over again. The life of a historic African king was no fairy tale. It was an exhausting, all-encompassing performance of divinity, justice, and administration. Depending on the kingdom, he was a high priest, a supreme judge, a commander-in-chief, or a CEO managing a complex economy. He was the living heart of his kingdom, and his daily grind was the beat that kept it alive. The romantic image of a ruler lounging on a throne misses the point. The throne wasn't a chair, it was a workstation. The crown wasn't just jewelry, it was the ultimate burden of responsibility. The king's time and his personal life were inseparable from his public role, belonging to his people, his ancestors, and the gods. If you want to uncover more hidden truths from history, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. Let us know in the comments which ancient ruler's daily routine you'd like us to explore next. Thanks for watching.